if Jimmy Garoppolo beats out Trey Lance can be the backup on this team. I think I think the fan base will understand it. He's 21, give him some time. The locker room will understand it. But if Trey Lance beats out Jimmy and the Niners keep Jimmy as a backup, that to me could become a very explosive situation because the fans love Jimmy. The players love Jimmy. And to keep him as a backup, I think a lot of people would look at that as an unnecessary slap in the face to a player who delivered the Niners out of dark times and was on a team that went to a Super Bowl. I don't think the Niners can keep Jimmy Garoppolo as a backup is what I'm trying to say. Do you see where I'm coming from on this one?
This has so much precedence in business, the military, athletics, in every sphere of authority. You don't keep the former commander, you don't keep the former captain around too long. No. And especially in something that's not as structured as business or military, like a football team, there's high emotions, and rightfully so, on a team. To have him there is going to be a drag on because here's the thing. I'm not speaking for George Kittle, but let's say as an example, he's a Jimmy kind of guy. Now, he said some nice things about Lance. I think Kittle is prepared. I think he is. But you just don't know who's going to side with who. We have seen locker room splits in the San Francisco 49ers before. And just to have Jimmy around, do I believe at the personal level that Jimmy will actually do his job? Yes, I do. I do actually think he will demonstrate some very gritty humility. But as far as everyone else on the team, no, you can't keep this guy around, plain and simple. And it's just one of those things where every time Trey Lance slips and falls, people will be clamoring for Jimmy Garoppolo. He's going to have a bad game. Someone like the Seahawks or the Rams are going to light him up in one game in his career at least. You can't have Jimmy Garoppolo around like, well.
You're absolutely right. And again, it's not just going to be from the fan base, although it will be from the fan base. It'll be from the locker room. I mean, exactly. Kyle Juszczyk came out today. I think he was on with who? I'm sorry. It was Ross Tucker. I'm sorry. It was one of these podcasts, and he goes on. He says, it's Jimmy Garoppolo's team until it isn't. It's Jimmy Garoppolo's team until he gets hurt. Look, that's how these guys have been with him for 4 years. They spent a lot of time with him. I mean, Trey Lance is like 10 years younger than a lot of these players. I get it. As long as they're both on the team, you're creating kind of a mixed messaging situation, and players are free to back who they want. So that's Absolutely. Why I really feel like you can't let what happened in Philly last year happen to the Niners. I know it sounds crazy.
Yeah, we were talking about that before the show. Wentz and Jalen Hurts is just like, that's a tough one for Wentz. This is a guy who he watched his team go get the Super Bowl because he got injured. And now he has this young gunner coming in. He begins to falter. It's not good for the fan base. He actually started getting boos from the fan base. Do you remember that?
You split the fan base. He struggles, and then the fans are saying, well, let's give this second-round pick a try. Why did we draft Jalen Hurts? Carson Wentz is struggling, put him on. I'm just saying, I don't even know if – here's what the more that I think about it –
we don't need this media headline for one. In fact, we don't need Ziggy here and myself and Jack Hammer and all the Vish and the rest of the guys sitting here talking about this drama in the season. The team – because here's the thing. If we are focused on this now – the team is doubly focused on it in the locker room. So they have got to, this is something that Shanahan and Lynch have got to understand. They have got to monitor it, govern it, direct it, and silence it. And the best way to silence it is to take the elephant out of the room, which, if you're going to move on, is the guy that's Jimmy Garoppolo.
But the more I think about it, the more I just feel like these two guys can't be on the team together. There's an echo. I don't know what's happening. All of it's back. Okay. Okay. So what I'm saying is I don't think these two guys can be on the team together during the season because, as you said, let's say Trey Lance starts, Jimmy's the backup, Trey Lance struggles week 1 or week 2 and loses. The fan base and some of the team says, well, Jimmy would have won. Let's do the reverse. Let's say Jimmy's on the team and he starts week 1 against Detroit, okay? And Trey Lance looked good in preseason, but they go with Jimmy week 1 and he loses to Detroit. How many people in the locker room say, well, we should have went with the kid. He's better. And how many people in the fan? I feel like one way or another, you got an unwinnable situation for the starter if the other guy's the backup. So it seems to me you pick one and you go with it. No, it seems to me that Jimmy Garoppolo can be on this team. I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo can be on this team. I don't think he can.
Well, the most important issue here is the amount of static I'm going to take from that Detroit fan if we lose the first game.
Let's go back to the military analogy you used. It's like you had a commander, you brought in a new commander, and you know he's going to take over at some point.
I have actually been in this position.
Yes,
literally.
You know he's going to take over at some point.
Yes.
But it could be this week, it could be next week, it could be 3 weeks from now. You've already undermined this guy's authority. So what are you waiting for?
Yes.
What are you waiting for?
Yeah, and here's the thing. The exact, by the way, shout out to my chief, the BM, who comments on, he's a big fan of you. He did, I think, 21 years in the Navy. We were talking about this the other day, and my first commanding officer, I will not name names, suffice it to say, I actually got along with him. He was sent off to Guam for some acts of brutality under his command in my battalion. We were mixed Marine and Navy. And while he was still there, and the change of command proceedings were underway, there was divisive split. There was yelling, there was punking, there was shoving, there was someone took a swing at someone because we were not thriving out of seeing the old guard replaced by the new guard. And the new one came from, he was the commanding officer of a military prison, that's all I'm going to say. Just a kind of a interesting fellow, little guy with glasses, and did this with his hands a lot.
Wow.
We used to have this tall and dashing.
Those are the scariest people.
Yeah, he was a naval aviator, and he was a World War II kind of like get you fired up. The differences in personalities between Garoppolo and Lance are going to prohibit them from leading the team at the same time. That's my point. So it doesn't matter if they like one or the other. You can't have two commanders. It doesn't work. You can't have two. You don't, as just a 9 to 5 person clocking in, going to the office, you don't want two managers saying, did you get this done? Did you get this done? You get tired of having two directions. You want one direction and you want to go with it. Doesn't matter how much of a leader or a follower you are, wherever you fall into the chain of command, you just want direction and you want solidarity. There's a big emotion on a football team. You know, we can sit here as fans, analysts, and we can say, just do your job. It's not that simple. They have to be managed and directed, and their emotions have to be taken into consideration. That's part of leadership. That's part of team play.
Yeah, I just feel like if you have, again, there's the echo. Turn it down. If you have Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance on the team together this year, you're running. I think we've undersold the risk of this team being split, the locker room being split. Having both of these guys on the team, it could happen in so many different ways. So what I think we're saying is they got to move Jimmy Garoppolo. They have to. They have to. And it's not for financial reasons. We're not talking about the cap and how much money he costs. We're talking about the dynamics of a team.
And here's the thing, pick a direction and do it the best you can do it.
Yeah.
Just pick a direction and go with it. Don't do two jobs at once. Just pick one direction, one leader, and do that to the best of your ability. And that's where the leadership of Shanahan and Lynch, they should clearly define the direction to the team. I don't know if they have with behind closed doors. I don't know if the 49ers players know something we don't, potentially. But they need to define this and define it soon.
Yeah,
because preparation for a season is like preparation for a mission. The more time, the better.
Yeah, and again, look at Philly for what can happen. Doug Peterson won a Super Bowl. Things started getting a little bit bad, and he drafts a quarterback and plays both of them. Both of them struggle. They have a bad season, gets fired. Let's say the Niners have a similar season where Jimmy Garoppolo starts, struggles, gets benched. Trey Lance comes in, struggles. The team wins 6 games. The fan base is mad. There's not all this optimism and hope for the future because both quarterbacks struggled. All of a sudden, you're looking at like, what do we have here? You don't want that to happen. This is very delicate. It seems to me that basically what the best way, the course of action here is when it's time for Lance to take over, what you do is you trade Jimmy and say we're doing this out of respect for Jimmy.
Yeah,
we like
because
Jimmy.
To move on before the quarterback market gets reset and more draft picks come out of college.
Yes.
Because
we don't want to punish Jimmy. We don't want to embarrass Jimmy. We don't want him standing on the bench. We love Jimmy, and we want him to be a starter somewhere else. So out of respect to him, like they did with Navarro Bowman, we're going to let him go. And I think that would play well with the fan base and with the locker room.
And here's the thing. If you need a balm for the wound, the San Francisco 49ers have done this once before, although not premeditatively, but going from Smith to Kaepernick.
Yes.
And they went to the Super Bowl. So
having Alex Smith on the bench that season in 2012 was humiliating for him. I remember it. I lived through it. He took it like a pro, and they didn't make him do it the next year. They could have kept him.
I foresee that Garoppolo would do that as well. But here's the thing. I think that the Niners today are more personnel oriented than they were back then. I think someone like John Lynch is going to look Garoppolo in the eye and say, look, man, we love you. You helped save this franchise. They're going to tell him, you took us to a Super Bowl, and now we owe you something.
Yes.
And what we owe you is the opportunity to go somewhere else and thrive. And,
exactly.
I mean, I still think he's better than a lot of the quarterbacks out there. I think he would be a good fit in a couple of other places, and he needs to go on with his career. Sitting on the bench is not accomplishing anything for him except more question marks.
Yeah, and remember, the Niners could have kept Alex Smith in 2013 as a super backup for Colin Kaepernick, who hadn't proven much. He'd started 10 games in the NFL, but they didn't do that because it would have been infuriating for Alex Smith. It would have created bad blood, and they didn't want to do that to him. They wanted to have a good relationship. I don't know if they accomplished that, but out of respect,
he's been through
they let him go.
Rings in his career. Amazing guy.
Domain says if Trey beats out Jimmy gets traded before week 1 for the sake of himself and the team. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Absolutely. Domain is on top of a lot of things. He knows his scores.
Would you just turn me down one more? The echo just won't go away. I don't know what's going on. Trey Niner says,
let's just plug in the headphones and be.
That's usually the best way to go. Trey Niner says the only way to keep Jimmy is as the starter. Allow him to fail or get injured, and then it's an easy replacement. No harm, no foul. Winning cures everything. Yeah, but what if he never gets hurt? What if he never fails? What if he keeps chugging along? Eventually, you got to make the transition to the kid. I mean, eventually, you got to do something uncomfortable, right? I mean, that's a tough one to me. It seems like what people are saying is this is Jimmy Garoppolo's team until he gives it up.
Well, I think that Trey's playing it safe, and I think that was the narrative to begin with. Trey, there's nothing wrong with that. I definitely see your points. I think that in a perfect world, your theory is absolutely perfect. I think that the upside, the team chemistry, the projection of what Trey Lance could do for unlocking Kyle Shanahan. I think Kyle Shanahan is basically his abilities and his play calling are toned down. They're watered down because he's having to put a Band-Aid on Garoppolo. He can do it, he can mask it, but we're talking about unleashing the racehorse and just letting them run. So definitely in a perfect world, what you say is true, and I don't think it's particularly wrong, but the upside of Trey Lance is superior, and we have to move on eventually.
Right, and I think the Niner fans are like used to, the Colin Kaepernick situation where he sat a year, or the Steve Young situation where he sat a long time. But
that's typical, classical of the NFL. That's an old school mentality. I think with the schemes being run in college, I think with the athletics, the nutrition, the exposure to tape that we have today, I think that there's an opportunity for intelligent young quarterbacks to be more NFL ready than in the past. I definitely think so. Also,
Colin Kaepernick was a second-round pick. Steve Young was signed after he was. They traded for Steve Young. They traded for Steve Young. So it was not the same level of investment as trading 3 first-round picks and a third to move up to number 3. I mean, you just don't sit those players. Third pick in the draft. It's like trading it for Nick Bosa and being like, we're just not going to use him this year. No, he was the 3rd pick in the draft. You're using him. So even Mahomes, 10th pick, not exactly the same thing. He's in a situation where it's not a question of like, well, it could be Jimmy's team or it could be Trey's team. Like, no. This is Trey's team. It is because of what they gave up to get him. If they'd stuck at 12 and drafted Mac Jones, you can make an argument that it could still be Jimmy's team.
I wouldn't want Mac Jones taking over this team over Jimmy. Absolutely not.
No, they're too similar.